Rigby's Roads, Chapter 19, The My Life, His Life, Fork in the Road. Jack opened his eyes. It was Monday, 1:38 in the afternoon, and it was raining hard outside. Henry's bed was slept in, but he wasn't in the room. He took a shower, dressed, and went down the hall to Red's room. He knocked, but nobody answered. He tried Wheel's room, and then Pinky's. No answer. Tonight was the big exchange for the return of Yogi, and he was alone. He called Wheels on the Y-phone.
Yeah?
Wheels, it's Jack. I just woke up. I can't find anybody.
Well, good afternoon, Sleeping Beauty. It's been raining all morning. Things are really slow down here. I heard them talking about going to the movies or bowling or something that was indoors and dry. Your bike is here with me. What are you going to do?
I don't know. If you see them, can you tell them to pick me up?
Yeah, sure. Catch you later.
Jack turned on the Weather Channel for the local forecast. It called for rain, heavy at times, with gusts 20 to 30 miles an hour, but clearing late afternoon. There was a knock at his door. He opened it to see Scud, the FBI agent, and another guy he recognized from the ride up. Come with us, Jack. Jack knew what was about to happen. They walked down the hall to a room around the corner. As they entered, he saw Patterson, whose appearance had changed since their last meeting. He had on jeans, but he could tell they looked new, and he was sporting a 2-day-old beard growth. It was a feeble attempt to fit in with the crowd. The other agent was dressed in his FBI slacks and shiny shoes. He walked towards Jack, and Peterson introduced him. Jack, this is Sam Jordan from Washington. Hello, Jack. He extended his hand for a friendly greeting as he gestured to the room's only chair. Sit down. The president has asked me to personally come here and wrap this thing up. I arrived here this morning because of what happened in Deadwood last night. Deadwood? I think we passed that on the way here. What happened? Deadwood is a gambling town about 14 miles from here. Last night there was a disturbance at one of the casinos. It seems that a few motorcycle members from Boston, the Boss Stones, were arrested for disorderly conduct, possession of a controlled substance, and a few other violations. We know that's the gang that has the bag and that we all looking for. And after searching them and their bikes, we realized they didn't have the bag with them. We didn't mention anything about the bag. We can't afford to spook them at this point. I gave the order to release them this morning. We called in several agents who are working undercover to follow them. They are staying at the Buffalo Chip campground. Jack was confused. Why don't you and your team just storm the campground and search for the bag? Oh, we can't do that, Jack. If we could round up the entire gang all at once, it might be feasible, but we can't take that chance. If we move in, and the one that has the bag sees us from a distance, it would scare him off and we'd be back to square one all over again. We now have agents camping nearby watching their every move. Jack looked confused. So why are you telling me all this? Jordan smiled in a calming way. A few reasons. One, we are all working on this together as a team. Two, you need to know we are close by in case anything happens or if you find out something that we need to know. And three, because the president himself told me to tell you. Jack felt different than before. He no longer felt threatened by the FBI. He now had a sense of belonging to this mission of national security. The president himself ordered this guy to talk to him. Okay, what do you want me to do? Stay alert. Keep your eyes open. We heard about your call for a sit-down. As soon as you have a time and a place for that meeting, call this number. That's it. And remember, the president's counting on you. Jack went back to his room to lay on his bed. He watched TV, flipping the channels incessantly, never stopping on anything for more than 5 seconds. He knew he would see Yogi tonight, and that part of this journey would be finished. The second part, finding the bag, would complete the mission and free him from any strings that had him tied to the FBI. Around 4 o'clock, Henry came into the room. He had been bowling with the group to stay out of the rain. Jack filled Henry in on the FBI visit, confirming Scud was FBI, and they were close by and watching every move. The room was probably bugged too, but he didn't care anymore. The FBI needed to know he was determined to help them out. Anything said in the room would only ensure that intention. Henry mentioned that while they were bowling, some of the bikers talked about the Boss Stones' stolen motorcycle business and their arrest record that was world famous. Henry told Jack,
"They said if you have a bike stolen, call them first to see if they have it, and they will cut you a deal. But if you go to the cops first, you'll never see your bike again. They don't really steal your bike, they kidnap it, and then they wait for you to contact them to pay ransom. If you don't call, they don't care. Your bike will find a new home in Europe or South America within 2 weeks."
Jack reminded him, "They will steal anything. Don't forget, they stole the bag from Pinky in Grand Junction." Henry added,
"Someone said they tour the country every year and scatter biker events for future victims. They start in Boston and head to South Florida before going west to California. Then they wind up in Sturgis before heading back to Boston. They make lists of types of motorcycles and copy the license plate numbers for future tracking. Have you ever heard of anything as sophisticated as that?"
Jack nodded. "You'd be surprised about what goes on that you're not aware of." Red knocked on the door, and Henry let her in. "Hey guys, the rain stopped. Get ready for a night on the town. Wheels wants us all on our bikes for the exchange tonight. Hammer, you're riding with me. Jack, Pinky's going to take you downtown to the display, and we're going to go over the plan so there are no surprises. You can ride your bike from there. See you in 5 minutes." The ride into town was like an army going to war. There were only about 15 of them, but they were all riding with the same purpose, to get Yogi back and make this exchange as simple as possible. The streets were still wet in spots, but clear skies were filtering through the once ominous clouds. When they arrived at the display, there were more than 40 bikers there. Wheels gathered everybody around and simply explained that he wanted everybody to spread out, especially on the side streets, and be ready for anything.
"This should go really smooth, but be careful not to spook them. We only have one purpose here tonight, and that is to simply make the exchange to get Yogi back safe."
"Oh, shit!" Jack yelled. Everyone turned to look at Jack. Jack looked directly at Wheels. "I'll be right back." Wheels shook his head and smiled. He figured that Jack forgot the scratch tickets. Wheels looked at his watch.
"It's 5 o'clock. Jack, meet me back here by 6:30. You have plenty of time. The rest of you scatter around town and don't bunch up. You guys over there, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The 10 of you need to be on foot. The rest stay on your bikes and slowly make your way to First and Main around 6:45, and then keep parading up and down both sides of the street and be ready for anything."
Jack rode off, but the traffic going in and out of Sturgis was always the same, tire to tire, and often walking the bikes in slow procession. He turned down a side street to go over 1 block and take a side road to the edge of town, which helped a lot. As he came upon the intersection to get onto I-90, he stopped at the red light and looked at his watch. He had plenty of time. It only took about 30 minutes to get back to Rapid City, and he felt like an idiot, forgetting the most important thing to make the night a success. As he waited for the light to turn green, he scolded himself. "I can't believe how stupid I am. It would be like that biker over there forgetting to wear his leather jacket to Sturgis, or that biker forgetting to pack his stuff for the trip in that bag with the kangaroo on it." "Kangaroo? That's the bag. That's the guy. Shit, there it is. There it is." Jack looked around. "Where's the damn FBI when you need them?" He waved his arms over his head and pointed to the bag, thinking maybe he was being followed by Scud or other FBI. The other bikers next to him thought he was another crazy biker. The bag was within 8 feet of his reach. The biker had on a leather jacket with the names Boss Stones and Kang written on the back. Jack immediately realized this connection. That's why he stole the bag. Not because Pinky cut in front of him at the gas station, but because his name was Kang, which was short for kangaroo. He liked the kangaroo on the bag. The light turned green and Jack followed him to the entrance of the interstate. But then it happened. Kang was going straight, and he had to turn left to go get the tickets. Jack hesitated, thinking, Yogi, tickets, FBI, bag, Yogi, tickets, FBI, bag. He stopped in the middle of the road while the other bikers went around him. The fork in the road decision had made him go numb. While he hesitated, the light changed, and now he found himself in the middle of the intersection as traffic from the other direction forced him to make a move. He watched Kang disappear down the road ahead, but Yogi's safety forced him onto the entrance ramp and get the tickets. He had chosen the right road, but he would never be able to go back and choose the other road again, as destiny had played a dirty trick on him. An hour later, he arrived back in town with the tickets. He excitedly told Wheels about his discovery, and Wheels assured him,
Good. Now we know the bag is in town, and now we know who has it. Kang is the Bus-Stone's president. I've done some business with him in the past, back in the old days, before we became legit. He's old school, the way we used to do things. I haven't seen him in a few years. Good work, Jack, and thanks for making the right decision not to follow him and choosing to get the tickets instead.
Jack gave Wheels a reassuring look. Hey, there was no hesitation at all. That was a no-brainer decision. What, are you kidding me? Wheels pointed at the brown paper bag, then to Henry.
Give Henry the tickets. Henry, you're with me. Let's go.
They rode towards Main Street. The plan was simple. Wheels, with Henry on the back, would ride down one side of the street, while the DTs with Yogi would come up the other side of the street from the opposite direction. They would pass each other once, go to the end of town, turn around, and come back, this time trying to meet at First and Main at the same time where the exchange would take place. It allowed both sides to size up each other's gang and assure a level playing field. The interesting part was that there were 8 Sturgis policemen surrounding that intersection, 2 on each cross street connecting the intersection. Wheels, with Henry, rode down Main Street, and they became part of the never-ending parade of bikers, each showing off their custom bikes, inspired creations, and some people were costumed like it was Halloween. Although Sturgis is a biker town for 10 days out of the year, it has its share of locals who come down from the farms for what was probably their best entertainment of the year. Some of the locals were bikers also, and Jack could tell right away that they were from the area with their crew cuts and John Deere t-shirts. One guy in shorts was wearing red socks and a straw hat, riding a Vespa scooter. The locals stood out, and some felt the need to be seen in this once-a-year spectacle, which their town graciously hosted. There were also the accidental tourists who happened to be in the Black Hills area for their summer vacation, visiting Mount Rushmore and the surrounding sites. They would stop for a closer look and ask, "What's with all the motorcycles?" These families would walk down the sidewalks, and the mom would put their hands over the kids' eyes as a woman wearing a thong and duct tape, barely covering her nipples, would come from the other direction. Sturgis was more than a biker event. It was Mardi Gras, Halloween, and an event that provided some of the best people watching on the planet. Jack now understood why Sturgis was a must for your list of 50 things. As he followed Wheels down Main Street, he saw Henry waving excitedly from the back of Wheels' motorcycle. On the other side of the street, just up ahead, another arm was waving back. It was Yogi on the back of Gunner's motorcycle, the head DT. There were 6 other DTs behind them, and Jack figured the rest were nearby, like Wheels' bunch that were scattered everywhere. As they passed each other going in the opposite direction, Jack could see one of Yogi's hands was handcuffed to the frame of the motorcycle. Henry held up the bag of tickets to make sure they saw it, as Wheels and Gunner nodded at each other. They made their way to the end of town and turned around for the ride back, this time trying to pace themselves to arrive at First and Main at the same time as their counterparts. This was hard to calculate since motorcycles were pulling in and out of parking spots all the time along Main Street, causing temporary slowdowns. There was also the camera crowd to deal with. People with cameras were everywhere, especially near the intersections, trying to capture the essence of the never-ending pageant. If someone with a camera stepped off the sidewalk onto the street to take a picture, the whole line would come to a halt as the biker who was chosen to be photographed would stop, pose, and wait until the photographer had their shot. Jack noticed some of his group that rode up with them were scattered along Main Street and at the intersections. Wheels' cohorts were well represented. As Wheels and Henry approached First Street, Jack saw they were early for the midpoint rendezvous. They pulled off to the side and waved the others behind them to go ahead. The intersection was the perfect place to assure a safe exchange. Not only was it the exact center of town and was surrounded by 8 policemen, it also had cameras up on the corners of the buildings that took the picture of the intersection every 30 seconds and was posted on the internet for the whole world to see. Henry pointed up ahead.
Here they come.
Wheels pulled out into the lane again, with Big Tony close behind, followed by Jack and Pinky. Wheels waited for the biker in front of him to move, and he took his place as next in line to cross the intersection. Gunner pulled up from the opposite direction and stopped at the intersection. Gunner reached into his pocket and pulled out the key for Yogi's handcuffs. As he turned to Yogi to give him the key, Yogi surprised Gunner by holding out the handcuffs that he had already magically removed. Gunner and Wheels nodded at each other and slowly pulled out into the intersection. Wheels turning left and Gunner turning left both met in the dead center of the intersection. Big Tony followed Wheels, and Gunner's boys stood in their lane. With perfect timing, all of the other lanes of cross traffic were occupied by Wheels' men. They all watched as Henry handed the bag to Gunner, and that allowed Yogi to dismount and quickly jump onto the back of Big Tony's bike. The policemen watched the exchange but were unaware as to what they were witnessing. Wheels, with Henry, and Big Tony, with Yogi, drove off down the side street as the rest of the bikers in their lanes stood their ground, not moving until they knew this deal was safely completed and the matter was officially closed. The policemen realized that nobody had moved through the intersection for about 20 seconds, and they looked at each lane of traffic, trying to spot a reason why nobody moved. Then, as everybody saw the cops stepping in toward the intersection, searching for answers, the bikers pulled out and went on their way down the opposite side streets. They all met at Big Al's Steakhouse Saloon in Deadwood, knowing the DTs would not show up anywhere near there, since Deadwood was where they got arrested the night before. Yogi flashed his fake ID as Wheels shook his head and grinned. One by one, they all joined the party and eagerly met Yogi, some shaking his hand, some rubbing his head, while others punched him fondly in the arm. Jack held out his hand for a handshake, and Yogi put his arms around him and hugged him. The others in the crowd gave a simultaneous "Aww," and Yogi gave them the finger, and that caused them all to laugh. They sat down at their table, and Yogi spoke. "Henry tells me the Boss Stones have the bag that the FBI is looking for. I saw them all last week at the campground. They're doing a deal with the DTs on ripping off bikes, and I helped them organize a spreadsheet of bikes, license plates, and potential buyers." Henry was astonished to hear that coming from Yogi. He looked at Wheels and at Jack for someone to speak up and confront him. Jack, seeing Henry's disbelief, added, "Calm down, Henry. You can bet there's more to the story than that." Yogi laughed. "Well, Jack, I guess you have learned a little something about me in the short time we've been together. Actually, I did a lot of work for them these past few weeks, setting up the websites, cleaning up arrest records, laundering money and bank accounts, setting up the lotto ticket scam, and lots of other stuff. The more I helped them, the more they trusted me, the better I ate. It's been like a fun vacation for me." Henry spoke up.
But you were handcuffed to that bike.
"They handcuffed me every night, so I wouldn't escape. But I would pick the lock and go out with Stinky. He's my age. Me and Stinky would cruise the campground and party and be back in time before the DTs knew I was gone. I couldn't just run away. That would not have helped this craziness." Henry was still confused.
But why would you help them with all this criminal activity?
"Well, Henry, I did it to get on their good side, to make my life easier. And I also did it as part of a deal to stop them from breaking both your arms." Axe didn't blame me for breaking his arm. He blamed you. That's all he talked about, was getting even with you. Henry was in disbelief.
Breaking both of my arms is getting even? They should be breaking Jack's arms, not mine.
Jack glanced at Henry with a thanks a lot look. Yogi spoke up. Calm down. Nobody's arms are getting broken. I erased his arrest records and told him that if he ever came within 100 feet of you, me, or Jack again, I would not only restore his arrest records, but I would also add things to it that he didn't even do, and put his name on the FBI's most wanted list. Wheels asked sarcastically.
So get to the point, Mr. Wizard. You helped the most by...
Yogi smiled. By adding a hidden program to their website and computer so that the stolen bike list information would be sent to every city's police force. Wheels knew there was more.
And?
Yogi continued. And I sent the police a copy of all records that I changed, and I put a backdoor in the gang's computer to allow the FBI and the cops to go in anytime they want and read their files without being noticed.
Thank you. Nice touch.
The rest of the night was a recap of everything that happened since Yogi was kidnapped. Yogi was amused that Jack's decoding of the message he left behind was pretty creative, finding a latitude and longitude coordinate that pinpointed a city in Afghanistan by counting the dots. They all had a big laugh with that one. End chapter 19.